Good afternoon. My name is Joe Bandel, and I am the last Rosicrucian. This is my weekly update of what I sense happening uh, around the energy wise, kind of dealing, I guess, with Gaia's ascension, humanity's ascension. I tried to read the energies that are going on, and wow, is it crazy. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to title this yet, but I'm going to bring out some things that every week I try to find something that other people that talk about Gaia's ascension are not bringing up. They're not talking about it. So I'm trying to find my own way through the chaotic element here. And when you look at what's going on, I'm looking mostly at my own uh, insights that I get from. I'm active on the astral planes, the etheric planes. A lot of what I feel is going on is determined by my own visions, dreams, travels, whatever. But I'm also trying to keep tabs on what's going on politically, what's going on with the other channelers out there, what's going on astrologically, even though I don't really get into it that much because I have my own take on things, which basically I call organic Gnosticism or oak. And it's a little bit different than what other people are saying. So, what's happening? Well, I'm going to be very blunt and I'm going to say if you're in fear, it's the wrong way to go. It's the wrong thing. This is not the time for fear. It's the time to get real. And I look at my own life, I look at the past years, things like that. And what I can say is that when I keep butting my head against the wall, the lesson ultimately that I've learned is I'm going in the wrong direction. So if you find yourself butting up against a wall where things are going wrong, you're going in the wrong direction. Whether you believe you're going in the wrong direction or not doesn't matter. If you're butting your head up against the wall, you're going against you're uh, you're going in the wrong direction. That is probably the best advice that I can tell you. If things are going well for you, good, good for you. You're going in the right direction. I've been speaking for years and I've been saying that our circumstances, our individual circumstances are crystallizing around us. Ideally, we can we have timelines. What is a timeline? Let me just ask that question. What's a timeline? Well, a timeline is a planned sequence of events that is set up in the astral and it plays itself out. Isn't I mean it makes sense, right? Okay. And typically, according to the yearly cycles, the solar and lunar cycles or whatever, these events, the main events in our lives, play themselves out in the astral a year ahead of time. So they're crystallizing, they're being formed a year ahead of time. So the things that are going on in the world today were actually resolved in the astral a year ago, roughly speaking. They've already worked themselves out. They belong to a timeline because that timeline is always tweaked, if you will. And there's last minute changes or whatever, and there's different timelines because there's different possible futures, if you will. But they all tend to combine and focus in one direction or another. The point being, if you continue to be butting your head against the wall, you're not going according to the timeline that you're in. Your reality is not cooperating with you. Another thing it just is meant to, I've just got to say it, we are in an energetic environment where there's a battle going on, and it's between the truth of the heart and what somebody would call the truth of the head. Logic and reason and fear are things in the head that no longer are connected to reality. The things in the heart, in contrast, are things that are not about fear, they're about love, and they're about connection to the earth, to reality. They're more real. For people that are struggling with what's going on, I'm going to say this specifically, what's going on with President Trump and his cabinet. They are doing the will of the populist majority, whether you like it or not. The majority, a very significant majority of the voters of the population of the United States voted for what's happening right now. And if you don't like it, that's tough. And if you think about it, what does that mean? Why have so many people supported what's happening right now? Because it's time for a new social contract. I've mentioned that book, The Fourth Turning. That book was saying that by 2025, if everything happens according to the cycles that it talks about, which is essentially the cycles that society evolves through cycles of about 80 years, 80 to 100 years or whatever, and that we are in a cycle where nothing works. The general population, our society as it exists, doesn't work for them. They have no chance at the American dream. I'm going to be pretty blunt and I'm going to say, okay, you got all these people out there, and I'm going to oversimplify this, but I'm going to say there's a segment of the population. What they did was they went to college, they got a college degree, and they got some kind of a government job. And they're the ones that are sweating bullets right now. And they are the ones that are, for many years, have been kind of smug, and they've been thinking, well, we're smarter than everybody else. And all of a sudden, the rug's being pulled out from under them. They're losing jobs in several different ways. They don't know what to do. And they're being thrown into survival mode. They are in fear. I'm reminded of the French Revolution. The French Revolution is when the average person, the poor person, the populist movement, when they revolted against a monarchy, there's a lot of heads got chopped off. It went way too far, because that's what the pendulum swing does. The pendulum swings one way, then it swings the other way. We are in the middle of a pendulum swing, and it's cutting, and it's dangerous. And if you want to fight what's happening, keep butting your head against the wall, because sooner or later your heads are going to come off. That's what you're seeing, is heads spinning. It's time to realize, oh my God, I better think about going in another direction, because this direction is not working. The fourth turning came right out and said that, hey, there's a social contract. If the cycle works as it has in the past, in the year 2025, that new social contract, which is an adjustment which is intended to bring fairness back to all levels of society, it's going to be implemented in 2025. Well, this is 2025. What's being implemented? Just asking you, what's being implemented? It's pretty obvious what's being implemented. And they're coming in just like the French Revolution. They're coming in. Another thing that the fourth turning said, when they wipe out the opposition is wiped out for almost 40 years. If this is true, you're looking at the opposition to this movement, to this populist-driven movement, to this new social contract that's being implemented. There's not going to be significant opposition for 40 years. So if you're thinking in 2 years things are going to turn around and change or whatever, you're in fantasy world. And I'm going to come out and I'm going to say things are going to be too extreme. They're going to get too extreme. But this is how these revolutions, if you will, this is how these significant social changes take place. And to be blunt as possible or whatever, you can tell who's on the winning side, and you can tell who's on the losing side. And for goodness sake, try to be on the winning side. Try to find out why or what's happening, and try to go with your heart rather than your mind. Now, I grew up on a farm, okay? And I grew up poor. I struggled to go to college. I got a bachelor's degree, but I used it for a little while, but I haven't used it in my life. Uh, I've never gotten over an income of over $30,000 a year. I've never gotten any higher than that. I've been in the just above poverty range all of my life, and I belong to Mensa. So being smart doesn't have anything to do with it. But on the other hand, I mean, and so you take all these people who think that they're so smart because they got a college degree and everything. It's the blue collar worker that's calling the shots here. It's the ordinary people. And when you're blaming Trump and you're blaming the Trump cabinet for what's happening, that's not going to cut it. You're beating your head against the wall. I'm just trying to share that. I'm trying to share the energetic, mystical, magical, occult reality of what's happening here is sweeping change, is clearing the board. And it's got a vicious element to it that if you're not careful can hurt you. There's a reason why on Pagan Space, there's a reason why I'm posting these videos that are from the Galactic Federation, the Star Seed, things like that. Um, the messages that they have are really heart oriented, and they're very positive, and they're very find the good in what's happening, this kind of thing. Don't get caught up in the negative. And even though part of me is kind of ready to I've done my share of astral battles and fought for stuff in my life, and I'm still fighting the good fight, if whatever. However, those messages, even though they're simple and even though they're heart based and even though they're positive, they're powerful. You can't go wrong by choosing the good. Even if your world's going down the toilet, you're choosing the good. If you're finding this to be a time of empowerment, that's good. That's even better. But for those, what I find myself when I look at what's going on in the world today, what's going on in the United States, when I find myself looking at these sweeping changes, I kind of am like, oh shit, this is, uh, my heart goes out to some of these people, but they've been butting their heads against the wall. Their mind, their thoughts have been going the wrong way. They've been being played. And I've I look at I look at the mental games, the mind games that are going on, and I'm just going to come right out and say it. Whenever I make a video like this, or I make a video and I try to give some insight or something like that, the truth of the matter is, why should anybody believe me? There's there's a lot more people out there that are saying, believe me, believe me. And they're getting the followers, and they're getting the followers. Why are they getting the followers? Because the followers like what they're saying. Nothing wrong with that. The thing is, things are so complicated that even I don't really know what to believe. Believe this, believe that, or whatever. We're deliberately being placed in a world where it is impossible to know where the truth lies. However, what I do know is that in our hearts, there is the master within, and that master speaks with the still small voice of our conscience, and it tells us what's right for us, and it tells us what's wrong for us. And it tells us that love and compassion is the human way. It is the spiritual path. And that if you lose that, and if you fall into fear, and if you fall into anger, you've lost. And it doesn't matter what side it is. Because ultimately, all we have is the present moment that we find ourselves in. And we've crystallized the events around us. We're stuck in a timeline that extends out into the future that has the main significant events that we are going to experience for the next year at least. And some of those things are going to be not so nice. But one way or another, we get through it. So it boils down to, what's our attitude going to be? And the attitude, it's becoming increasingly important that the attitude that we maintain is a spiritual based attitude of love, compassion, and forgiveness for both ourselves and for the ones we love, and for our neighbors and the entire world. And I'm going to say something that illustrates this a little bit. The war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. And I'm going to say, well, what in the last couple weeks has Donald Trump said about that? I forget our own bias for or against or this or that or whatever. What Donald Trump has said, and it doesn't, whether he believes it or whatever, I don't know, but what he said is, there's too many young men dying on both sides over there. The war has to stop. It's gone on long enough. End it. Doesn't matter who wins. End it. And that's pretty much where I'm at on this, is end it. No side is worth what is the murder, basically, the mass murder of young men and women on both sides of that battle. And the military industrial complex and the politicians in our world that insist upon perpetual war in some place in the world, that's wrong. That's wrong. And so what Trump is saying, and I'm not going to get into anything else, but what he's saying is really coming from the heart. It's wrong. It's got to end. It's got to end. And I'm saying it pretty much doesn't matter who ends up winning that. It's got to end. So I just gave that as a little bit of an example there, because what we're seeing happening is there's a lot of people would disagree with the viewpoint that I just shared, or they disagree with other things that I've shared in this video. And I'm simply saying that energetically, what's happening now is not going to be stopped. You cannot stop this wave that's cleaning house. And if you want to fight it, go ahead. Go ahead and fight it. But you're not gonna win. So try to smarten up and cut your losses where you can, because we're backing the wrong side. Something that's interesting from a spiritual, metaphysical, or occult position is that there were certain times in history where duels or battles were understood that whoever won because of the favor of God. In other words, the winner was always the just person. And I've never really been one to kind of, no, that doesn't sound right, really. But what's happening is kind of like there's a certain side that's winning, and they've been winning for the last 10 years. Winning. And the other side, everything they've tried has gone wrong. Take a clue. What's happening is happening because of the law of manifestation. Things manifest differently than they did. There's new metaphysical rules, new cosmic laws, if you will, that support manifestation. And what you're seeing is one side they believe that the way to win is through narrative, and it's through causing a stampede of people to go in one direction and make things happen. No. Because all that's intellectual and it's in the head, and these people have been keepers of humanity. They've been the the directors, the supervisors. They've been the upper management or the mid-level management. And what's happening is the lower levels are in rebellion, just like in the French Revolution. And it's just starting. It's not going to be pretty. There's going to be some real suffering happening, and uh, try to be safe. That's, I guess, what I'm going to end with. Till next time. Well, and choose love, choose compassion, choose hope, and go for what's important and what's passionate for you. Don't get into a fight with somebody else. That's because nobody wins those fights. They're mutually self destructive. Till next week, thank you.